Welcome back to Learning Greek with Jacob Kasule, and want us to do a quick recap on what we covered in our first lesson before we continue to the next part. And so you remember we started looking at the alphabet, and so we saw at least the first five of them, and that was alpha. And as you can see, at least how this we say the uppercase and then the lowercase and the English equivalent. And so there's alpha, beta, gamma, and you notice the at least for alpha it's very easy to write, very similar, both the uppercase and the lowercase. Beta, we say the only difference is in the lowercase, what we call the small letter is written still like the uppercase, the capital, but with a curve on top and then a protruding tail at the bottom. You remember that. And gamma is the one we said is slightly different, because you notice how the uppercase is written. It's like you're trying to do a triangle, a square shape, but then you do the top part of the square and the left part of the square, and you don't do the bottom and the right side. So that is the gamma. So you find something like that, that is gamma, which is equivalent to G. So that would be the capital letter, and the small letter, lowercase, is very similar to the English alphabetical letter Y. So we said when you find something like this, that is not a Y, it is a gamma, which is equivalent to the English G. And the fourth letter we saw was delta, and we say the uppercase, as you can see, the uppercase is written like a triangle, and the lowercase is written like you're doing a S and then completing that bottom. Remember, like doing a S and completing that bottom, or you could actually begin with that bottom and then take it up, with that bottom and take it up. And so that we said was the delta small letter, which is equivalent to the English letter D. And so we will continue from there. Of course, the last letter we saw was epsilon. And so epsilon, at least you notice the uppercase for epsilon is very similar to the English uppercase for E, and the lowercase is equally similar. The only difference is the lowercase you write like you're writing a C and crossing it in the middle. So that is the first five letters we saw last week, and you had, at least in the last lesson, and we had assignment for you. You were supposed to read the letters and practice the how to write it and practice how to pronounce it. And so we will continue from there and then continue. And as we've been doing, we have the name of the letter, how it is written in the uppercase, how it's written in the lowercase, and how it is supposed to be in the English equivalent. All right, so remember that. So the name of the letter, how it's written in the capital letter, what we call uppercase, how it's written in the lowercase small letter, and its English equivalent. So we've already covered the first five: alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and epsilon. The next one, the next letter in the alphabet is zeta. Zeta is in the uppercase, very easy, and you'll be able to recognize it immediately. It is the actual English equivalent English letter Z. You can notice how it's written. Now, the lowercase for zeta is slightly different and probably one of the few complex letters in the Greek alphabet to write. And so with it, it begins with a small tail and then something like that. So we need to practice this, that upper part, and then upper part. So it's almost like you're trying to think of that tail, but then you're trying to write a letter S, but not truly doing it, right? So we're going to need to take some time and practice this letter a little bit more, right? So that part, and then you do the curve, and then the lower part is not the same size. So that part, and then so to start, if doing the upper part is disturbing, first start with that curve like that, right? And then you know this, so that's how it's supposed to be. So the goal eventually is to be able to begin from the upper part without starting with the curve. So that. So you notice at least this is one of the letter that we need to take time in practicing it. Please do, because it's going to be very important as we write. So that is the uppercase for zeta, and of course it's equivalent to the English letter Z. So you notice the uppercase and the uh, English equivalent is very, very similar to the rest of the letters. So we're saying we're writing the name, how it appears in the uppercase, what we call capital letter, lowercase, lower, small letter, and the English equivalent. So the EE is for the English equivalent. So this is our next letter we've just written, zeta. That's how to pronounce. And the next letter is eta. Now, eta, when you find this in the alphabet, you're going to easily confuse it to something else in the English. So you're going to find something that actually looks like the English letter H. Whenever you find this is not H. That is eta, and we're going to talk about it just in a bit because it's equivalent to the English letter E. So in the uppercase, capital letter, it's written like a H in what we know in English. Now, the lowercase is completely different from how it appears in the uppercase. So in the lowercase small letter, you will actually find something that looks like an N. Something that looks like an N is what you're going to find. So now I've written this first to kind of just guide us a little bit because, so think of the normal letter N, right? Now with it, the lower case for eta is, so of course here's just a curve a little bit, and then instead of remaining that way, this part, the right part of the letter, goes down a little bit. Remember how the beta is with a tail at the bottom? Heta, small letter, small lowercase, is exactly the same way. And so something like this. So you find something that looks like an N, small letter, but with a protruding tail at the bottom. That is not N. So don't think of it like an N just written the wrong way. It is not N. If you're reading Greek and studying the alphabet, that you're seeing is not an N, it is eta, and it's equivalent to the English letter E. You've gotten? So now we can write it. So that, and then a little tail at the bottom. That is eta, and it's equivalent to the letter E as well, right? Now, remember we already looked at the letter epsilon. Remember epsilon? And we said epsilon is also equivalent to English letter E. Now we're seeing there's another letter that is equivalent to E. However, this E has this bar on top. And so with it, the way the eta is used is if the word, the eta or the e sound in that word has a strong and prolonged sound of the letter, they'll use eta instead of epsilon. And so if, for example, think of the word, if we were a word that the English word obey, for example, obey. Now you hear the sound of the E in obey is prolonged. So in the Greek writing, where the E sound appears and is stronger and prolonged, like how it appears in this word obey, they would write it with eta instead of epsilon. And so if the word, for example, think of the word bet. So you hear the difference between this E and this E. Bet, obey. And you tell the difference in the sound. In the word bet, the sound of the E is short and not prolonged and not very strong. But in the sound of the letter obey, the sound of the E is strong and prolonged. So Greek has two letters which is equivalent to the English E, that is epsilon and eta. So epsilon is used in cases where the sound of the E, think of it from the English perspective, where the sound of the E would be short, not prolonged, and soft. Bet, like how it appears in this word. In Greek, they would use epsilon. Eta is used where the sound of the E, the letter, is strong and prolonged, like it appears in the word obey. So that is why we have these two different letters that appears here. The two sounds of something similar in the English alphabet. So far we've covered two, that is zeta, and you see how it's written, and eta, right? And the third letter for us today is theta. Theta. Now, theta, those of you who've done science, done physics, and probably math at the high level, you found this letter, this symbol. Let me write it. At least you probably don't. You've not gotten the uppercase, but so you find, so the uppercase capital letter for theta is like that. So you write like you're writing a complete O, and then just put a sign. So think of it like you're writing like one of the road sign symbols, complete circle with a line in the middle, but that line in the middle does not touch any of the parts. So it starts from somewhere and ends somewhere before the circle begin and circle on the other side. So that is theta, right? Now, in the lowercase for theta is still similar to this, but now instead of a complete circle, you think of an oval shape. Think of an oval shape, something like that, but then you cut it across. Okay, think of an oval shape and then an oval shape and then cut it across. An oval shape and then cut it across. So you notice then the difference between the uppercase and the lowercase is not that much. The difference is in the uppercase is a complete circle and the line inside does not touch the edges of the circle. Then the lowercase is an oval shape and then it cuts across completely. So that is theta. So you've probably found this, right? So theta uppercase and theta lowercase, we can do it with that. Or since we've had better ones, complete oval shape and then we cut it across. That is theta. Now, theta is equivalent to the English th. So that means where the word, if we're writing it in English, where the word already has a th in it, we'll not have a t and an h to put it. It's just theta. And that is because, as we will continue looking at it, Greek does not have the letter h in its alphabet. And so words that would have a t and an h in it, this is the letter that is used, theta. So this is the third one for today: zeta, eta, theta. And the fourth letter for today is iota. Okay. Now, iota is very easy to write in its uppercase, just like the actual uppercase letter I, and the lowercase is slightly different. So think of something like this. The top part should not be curved. Straight up and then a small curve. Straight up and then a small curve. Straight up and a small curve. Now the difference with it is you don't put a dot on top. There's no dot. The moment you put a dot, you put something like this. Now that is not a Greek alphabetical letter anymore. It is an English letter. So the difference with it is you'll find it is just something like that. No dot. Okay. And it's, of course, equivalent to the English I. That one. So that is iota. So that is easy, right? And the fifth letter for us today is kappa. And kappa, the uppercase for kappa is exactly what the uppercase for uh, the English equivalent of the letter is. So just think of writing a capital K as you'd write in the English letter, and the small letter, the lowercase, is just slightly smaller in it, like that. And of course, kappa is equivalent to the English K. So this is probably one of the few alphabetical letters, beside maybe alpha, that both in the Greek letter and the uppercase and lowercase and then the English equivalent are very similar. So this is how kappa is, right? So here are our five letters for the day. Zeta, just want to emphasize zeta. Uppercase is very easy to write. English equivalent, of course, very easy to write. The lowercase is the one that's different. And so we say you need to take time and practice. Remember, you start with the curve and then you come and then you do that. So take time and practice the zeta. And we looked at eta, which the uppercase is very easy. So we say the moment you find this is not H. Greek does not have H letter in its alphabet. So when you find this in Greek, it is eta, equivalent to the English E, but with a bar on top, telling you the sound of the E is strong and it's prolonged. Its lowercase is written like you're writing an N, remember, but then with a tail on the right side. And the theta, we said the uppercase complete circle, a complete circle with a line inside, not touching. The smaller letter, you think of writing an oval and then cutting it across, and it's equivalent to th. And iota is very easy. You notice on the difference between the lowercase iota and the English equivalent is the iota, that lowercase for iota does not have that dot. So the moment you have this dot, you already don't have a Greek letter, you have the English letter, as you can see here. All right, and then the last letter for the day is kappa. We've just seen, and at least you can see the only difference between the uppercase Greek letter and the lowercase is in the size and just like the English equivalent. So this is the closest to English in all of its appearance in the Greek uppercase, lowercase, and the English equivalent. So just like we did in the first lesson, please practice and practice pronunciation. So you are supposed to practice the pronunciation and so practice how to pronounce and practice how to write. Now that we have 6 of them, please do practice with the first lesson as well. The first part, right from alpha at least all the way to kappa. Make sure you're able to pronounce it and write it and be able to tell, at least as you write, do the small, but also do the capital letters. All right. And then you'll be able to progress to the next lesson. All right. See you in the next one. I remain Jacob Kasule.